Got something you want to share to the world? We got you, fam! We are looking for awesome people like you who want to share content that deserve a spotlight on our site. Whether it's a list of everything you love about catos and doggos, pop culture related artworks, or even your own random photos, memes, and funny videos, we'd be happy to see it and share it to the world. Join our award-winning team and be part of our Ink Pop creator community.
Hey, it's me, Guyito. Want to become a writer, artist, or photographer when you grow up? Test your creative skills with us. We're looking for kids aged 7 to 12 years old with unpublished work like articles, short stories, poems, essays, artworks, videos, and others. Join our award-winning team and be a part of our Kinderpop contributors and get your awesome work published for the entire world to see. Send in your work to pop@inquirer.net or visit facebook.com/inkpop to know more. Now let's show them how kids get it done.
update for July 12th. Total cases here in the country are now at 56,259.
Got some?
Please stand by as we are about to start the National Mechanical Engineering Students Convergence. This event is brought to you by Philippine Society of Mechanical Engineers, University of the Philippines Student Unit Incorporated.
Our community partners, JPSME Ateneo de Davao University, JPSME Central Mindanao University Chapter, JPSME Eastern Visayas State University Tacloban Chapter,
JPSME Polytechnic University of the Philippines Alfonso Campus, JPSME Polytechnic University of the Philippines Taguig Branch, JPSME Xavier University Chapter.
JPSME Mindanao State University Iligan Institute of Technology, Unified JPSME Northern Mindanao, Mechanical Engineering Society, University of Perpetual Help System, Delta Calamba.
Mechanical Engineering Student Society, Batangas State University, New Era University Association of Mechanical Engineering Students, PSME Southern Luzon State University, PSME Bicol State College of Applied Sciences and Technology Student Unit,
PSME Bicol University Student Unit, PSME Camarines Norte State College Student Unit, PSME Lyceum of the Philippines University, Cavite Student Council,
PSME Manuel S. Enverga University Foundation Student Unit, PSME Mapua University Student Unit, PSME National University Student Unit, PSME University of Rizal System SU,
PSME Mariners Polytechnic Colleges Foundation, Legazpi, PSME Technological Institute of the Philippines Manila Student Unit, PSME Technological Institute of the Philippines Quezon City Student Unit,
PSME Tarlac State University Student Unit, UP Society of Geodetic Engineers.
Special thanks to UP Beta Epsilon Fraternity.
Our media partners, Inquirer.net, InkPop, SparkUp.
Some reminders for our audience. We have a charity drive entitled PSME Cares for Miss Dorothy Ancilio, who was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia and passed away last August 20. John Roffer Aguilios, on the other hand, lost his father and two siblings during a fire incident. A donation drive was initiated to help their families in these difficult times. Any amount would be a great help for their families to pay for hospital and funeral bills. Monetary donations may be sent to the following on your screen.
There will be a raffle winner picked every day of NMESC. To join the raffle, simply answer the evaluation forms to be sent out by the end of the day for a chance to win 200 peso cash.
To those who wish to get their e-certificates, remember to answer the evaluation form at the end of the talk for your details.
If you have any questions for the speakers, comment on the live stream with your full name, /school, /your question, and it will be carried over to the speaker by our moderators.
Disclaimer: the views and the opinions of the guests and speakers do not necessarily represent those of the organizers and partners of this program.
On with the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first day of this event. In celebration with the 14th PSME Month, with the theme Linked, Connect the Nation, Assemble the Future, we hold the National Mechanical Engineering Students Convergence. For years, the NMESC has brought mechanical engineering students the opportunity to learn from professionals and experts in the fields of mechanical engineering. It has also presented students with a knowledge of an ME's life in the industry through company talks.
This year, with the theme Gear Up, Restarting Innovation with Mechanical Engineering to Drive a Resilient and Renewed Nation, we'll not only talk about new and upcoming fields in mechanical engineering or how we, as soon to be mechanical engineers, can help building our nation. What we will be learning about is the role of mechanical engineers and mechanical engineering in shaping the nation for a sustainable future.
To give us more insight on this wonderful event, may we call on Mr. Ram Piamonte, NMESC 2020 co-head for the opening remarks.
So, hi guys. Thank you, Sai and Jamie, for that wonderful intro. So, I am Ram Piamonte, one of the co-heads for NMESC 2020. And on behalf of the PSME-UP Student Unit, I'd like to welcome all of you to the Convergence. We are glad to have all of you here for our 14th NMESC, and this is our first online one ever, actually. It fills me with so much joy to see that we have so many attendees, despite everything that's been going on. And I'm pretty sure that some of you have to write like a reflection paper about this, and I'm really sorry for that. I have no control over it. However, I really do hope that you all learned something from this event. From years, PSME UP Student Unit has helped many mechanical engineering students develop a better understanding of our chosen field. I'm sure a lot of you will agree with me when I say that mechanical engineering is hard. Many people even shift out of ME because of this. But through NMESC, we want to remind all of you why you picked mechanical engineering in the first place. This year's theme is Gear Up, restarting innovation with mechanical engineering to drive a resilient and renewed nation. We went with this theme because we wanted to showcase that despite everything that's been going on around us, there are still many people who really want to push for improvement in this country. Innovation never stops, and it's our job as the country's future mechanical engineers to keep moving forward. We are honored to have so many talented individuals speaking this week: Gabriel Lopez, Glennis Peña, Christian Delia, Joel Cruz, Phoebe Cartilla, Philip Kian, Marla Abao, and Roderick Ibanez. I look forward to what each of them have to say. Now, before I hand the stage back to Sai and Jamie, I'd once again like to thank all of you for attending, and I'd like to thank our community partners for their support. Now with that out of the way, back to Jamie and Sai. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Piamonte. Let's proceed with the talk.
Our first speaker is currently 20 years young and studying computer science in the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Gabriel Lopez is one of the co-founders of MedHive and is the company's current chief technology officer. He worked as a freelance web, mobile, and AI developer, a student partner at Microsoft, and a thought leader through his various published articles, workshops, and talks.
As a student partner at Microsoft, he gave talks about Microsoft Cognitive Services and attended multiple seminars and trainings such as Modern Workplace Training and Caravans.
His company, MedHive, created a digital platform for healthcare institutes to be able to easily find and purchase the necessary medical products, and they aim to create an accessible and interconnected market space for the ASEAN medical community. To put it simply, he wants to make a world where work is easy.
For the audience, you may leave questions in the streams during the speaker's talk. Please include your full name and school before stating your question.
Give a round of applause to Mr. Gabriel Lopez.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Can you allow me screen sharing, by the way? So thank you for coming today. So I'll share my presentation. So thank you for the very kind introduction from the PSME team. So yes, my name is Gab Lopez, and today I will be giving a talk action creating innovative businesses in a post-pandemic world. Even though this is something that that is not exactly there's something that I really think that should be shared to to people and engineering everywhere, because I truly believe that our innovations through engineering can help create a better, safer world for people, especially seeing the current struggles of people during this pandemic. So I actually want to introduce a topic before I talk about my the rest of my talk. The topic I want to introduce is called Lapis' demon. So there's this theory and of like a story of scientific determinism. The idea is that um, if somebody was able to know the positions and the forces moving everything in the universe, it's possible for that person or that being to predict the future. And I'm mentioning this because my job is to really tell the future. See, I'm CTO and co-founder of MedHive, and we've been doing MedHive even before the pandemic started. And even before that, we knew that something like this was gonna be a big problem. So really, change creates a lot of new problems, but actually, there are just a lot of different opportunities. It was William Pollard who said that without change, there's no innovation, creativity, or incentive for improvement. And really, the first step to change is really to understand the universe, right? So when you're trying to create an innovative business, you have to know the universe and know what has changed. What problems have arisen from that change and who are affected? One such industry that I think a lot of people can relate today is the restaurant industry. So this is a very simplified graph of the people involved in it. There's the farmers that give food to the factories that prepare food for the restaurants, and the restaurants that take this processed food and turn it into meals for the consumers. Now, the issue with the pandemic, like one of the biggest things that changed is that this link between the restaurants and the consumers has been completely cut. This now restaurants can't bring food to their consumers, and consumers can't go to restaurants, right? And so this has become something that's really destroyed the restaurant industry today. But then you've got companies like Grab Food and Food Panda and even Lala Food, who have helped create a bridge to these different industries. They've helped put up like their own way of creating and changing this industry. And so, if looking from an outside perspective, it's almost as if they predicted the future. It's almost as if they've seen that something like this was going to happen, but in reality, they just understood the universe even beforehand. They knew like what are the current problems, and what are the issues that people are facing. Right? If you look at it back then, the restaurant industry was completely face to face. So if anything ever destroyed that, then it would be completely severed. They knew that what did some problems could arise when this happens, and what kind of things would change. And from that, they were able to completely predict the future and then be able to build their business around that entire industry. Now, one thing that's even closer to what we're doing at MedHive is the issue with hospitals. So I'm sure everybody knows that hospitals these days have been pretty much decimated by the current pandemic. Not only are hospitals finding hard ways to treat their patients, but another problem is that actually distributors of medical supplies are having a hard time distributing supplies to hospitals. That's because, as you can see right now, there's probably a lot of distributors running out of stock, and it's hard to gain hold of many different medical supplies. So this line between distributors and hospitals has been cut. And so MedHive, what we did was we pretty much understood from the beginning that this line was already extremely thin. We knew that the smallest problem, smallest issue, it could really sever this tie between distributors and hospitals. And from that, we pretty much were able to predict the future. We were able to understand that, eventually these distributors and hospitals we need something and somebody to come in and help them. Make it easy for distributors to reach hospitals, and make it easier for hospitals to reach a vast number of safe and reliable suppliers out there. But really, it's everything I've said is kind of a lie, because innovators don't actually have to predict the future. What they just have to do is to create the future, because their prediction won't be wrong if they build the future themselves. And the first step to really doing that is to know all the positions and forces of the universe. right? This is something that I think a lot of people really need to understand from this point, because a lot of people tend to skip this part. And I'm pretty sure when any of you go into like entrepreneurship, regardless if you're in your industry, it's something that nobody really teaches you in school. This this part of understanding everything about the universe, talking to every single user, understanding your market to the closest unit of measure, is something that's not really taught that well in school. But it's something that's extremely important to get involved in business. Because if you don't know what problems your users are having, if you don't completely understand why they're having these problems, you don't know the forces and you don't know their positions, there's no way you'll be able to predict the future. But once you do, you'll be surprised, because once you're there, once you know everything, once you know all these variables, you'll be surprised because it's exceedingly easy to predict the future. It's almost like putting two and two together. Yeah, it's something that it's a pattern rise up, and something that you can see. You know what's gonna happen. It's almost like you're playing chess and you can see 10 moves ahead. And that's only possible if you completely understand your current universe. Because once you can kind of get an idea of what the future will be, what kind of problems people in the future will have if they keep on going down this path of going down the same path of the same with the same problems they have, you can understand what kind of problems you'll face 5, 10 years from now. And once you know that, you can now change the future. Change it so you won't be wrong. You won't be wrong if these people, if the future goes another way, it doesn't matter, because you yourself have created the future. You've created a future where you'll be correct, and you've created a future where you've helped make lives of thousands of people or even millions of people much better. And I showed you this quote earlier: without change, there's no innovation, creativity, or incentive for improvement. But it's actually not the full quote. The full quote is that those who initiate change will have a better opportunity to manage the change that is inevitable. And thank you. I think we can start Q&A.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel Lopez. Now we're headed to the question and answer portion of the talk. For the audience, if you have any questions, simply comment on the live stream your full name slash school slash your question.
Okay, we have one. Okay, first question from Jello from UP Diliman. He asks, how do you advise owners of small businesses to adopt innovative approaches in their methods?
Okay, so thank you for the question, Jello. So actually, I just want to say, like, I like that you pointed out small business, not startup, because there are many different things between small business and a startup. But really, one is that they're adopting innovative methods or creating innovative products, right? And so I think when you're looking at the field of how do I adopt innovative methods, I don't think that's the correct question to be asking. I think it's more of how do I think in an innovative way? How do I think in a way that's open to ideas? How do I think in a way where I can get many different ideas, many different inputs from people, and use this to create a better solution? Because there's no use to create an innovative solution if it doesn't actually solve the problem you have at hand. Innovative solutions are more just products of listening to ideas and talking to people. If you talk to a lot of people, if you can get their inputs, if you can make sure to if you make sure to treat ideas well, whereas you don't immediately throw away ideas when you hear them, or you don't immediately reject ideas when you hear them. Sometimes just asking, like, hey, could this actually work even for just a second, at every possible answer to your questions, then you can create and make your company adopt more innovative approaches and more wholesome and actually future approaches to your problems.
I'm sorry. Another question from Mikoy Torres from Makati High School. From the top of your head, what are your big brain science predictions regarding tech in the health industry, aside from your work on MedHive?
Mhm. Okay, so I think there are more obvious ones right now, like regarding the idea of adopting telemedicine. That's definitely that's very much on the horizon now because some people are adopting telemedicine. Uh, but I think that's only like really the first step in innovations of the health industry. Of course, we're gonna see massive improvements in med tech and so on that maybe a lot of these students can also work on. Whereas we might see uh, we might see more nanotechnology in the future where we're actually creating these we create and work on very small spaces, right? Very tiny procedures, and with this we can really create a more precise medical treatment, right? But besides just the med tech field, I think there's a lot of problems actually already inside the hospital that patients don't see. uh, if you if you talk to these people in hospitals, a lot of times these hospitals are messes, right? These doctors often take 48-hour shifts or even more, where you don't sleep or you don't really have 2 or 3 hours of sleeping. And I think that's a really big problem because nobody should really be working that long. I think one of the things that we're gonna see in the future, for one, is we're gonna start seeing uh, AI assisted diagnostics. Not I'm saying assisted, not AI controlled, like AI powered diagnostics, because there has been studies saying that any diagnostics performed by an AI and by a doctor are the same, like alone, or have like this almost the same success rate. But diagnostics performed with both an AI diagnostics machine and also a doctor has rose up by, I think, 3% to around 99% accuracy. And so I don't think you'll ever take the human out of the discussion, but you will start seeing that these AI will start empowering these doctors. They'll start helping them make more precise predictions, and also hopefully with this will help them spend less time on the field, since they'll have more of these AI assistants helping them in what they need to do. And of course, eventually, nursing will be helped in that way too, where there might be machines to make some aspects of nursing a lot easier, so that a lot of people don't have to spend these 48-hour shifts. And of course, the advancement in surgery machinery has made precise surgery much easier for the doctors who know how to use them, which just hopefully make surgeries a lot faster, a lot cleaner, and a lot safer for everybody.
Okay, another question from Jedidiah Betos from UP Manila. With the advent of AI and its role in automation, how do you think jobs and manpower can evolve and coexist with this change?
Mhm. So I think just want to get this out first. I think we're very far from anything like Terminator or Skynet, right? Uh, you know, that generalized AI that's smarter than humans is something that's light years away from what we're currently at. Currently, we're at the stage where AI is not smarter than humans. We're at the stage where AI is smarter than humans in very specific aspects, but not smarter than humans in every single aspect, right? And so this will help with extremely specialized tasks. This means that stuff like fields like accounting, especially accounting, and many different fields which are very specialized, which are very algorithmic, and have very specific tasks assigned to them. That's easy to make instructions out of. These kinds of things will be automated. These things with not just with AI, but just with programming and quantum computing in general. And so the easy tasks, basically, the easy tasks that humans aren't meant to be doing, will soon be automated. This means that the stuff that humans aren't really good at. So what humanity is really good at is really being creative, thinking of new things, thinking of creative solutions to problems. And I think in the future, AI will be doing all of the work for you, but you will be like the brain of the AI. You will be telling the AI what to do. And so that the easy stuff is automated, kind of like how a lot of technology has automated a lot of the work we do now. It has given us more time to think about things that humanity is good and has to think about. And that's really, that's why in my bio I believe that the future is a place where work is easy, because in the future your work is just gonna be thinking of creative ways to apply AI and into many different industries. Mm. Uh, so there's a next question here I can see. So yeah. Okay. So Jerico from UP Dilemma, you mentioned that my company is opted to help with the medical sector of the country. Among other problems posed by the pandemic, how this is which problem to focus on and thereby making a solution. Uh, so honestly, just do something that you're already good at. There's already a billion different issues you're gonna have creating an innovative business. There's so many different problems you're gonna run into. There's so many different things you're gonna you want to bang your head against the wall. So the reason we tackled medical supply procurement was because our team already had a lot of experience in it. We have a lot of advisors in it. And a lot of people who are in the hospital field who can tell us how to do it. And it's really one of those things where people approached us and said, "Hey, can you help us solve the solution?" And we're like, "Okay, we can actually do something about that, right?" Um, and of and so that's why it's one of the reasons we really actually doubled down on this idea and really tried to completely understand it. Even though I'm a computer scientist, I'm a programmer. I had to go to hospitals. It's pre-pandemic, but I had to go to hospitals. I had to talk to these users directly. I had to answer to these hospital staff directly and to ask them what the biggest problems were. And then that's something that we just fell in love with the problem. Never fall in love with the solution, by the way. Just fall in love with the problem because the solution changes. But once we fell in love with this problem, it's something that we really wanted to keep doing, and something that we really want to keep solving. So over the years, actually over the 2 years that we've been doing MedHive, the solution has changed so many times. It's what there's so many different permutations. But the initial really problem was just like there. And unless you have I don't suggest going to the medical field unless you have a medical advisor or people who are strong in the medical industry. But I think you'll find that a lot of problems just fall on your plate. A lot of problems you'll see and you think you can solve. And with that, I say, yeah, go ahead, you can try to solve it. But just try to understand first what exactly you're good at. If you're a mechanical engineer, solve a problem that a mechanical engineer could solve. It's really hard if you want to learn how to do something else before you can solve a problem, because you have to learn many new things on top of solving the problem. So really just solve something that you believe with your current set of skills you can solve. And if you can't do it with your current set of skills, but you believe you can get that set of skills pretty easily, then learn them, understand them, and understand how to solve the problem.
Okay, another question from Peter So from MHS Makati High School. Discuss what opportunities the field can take in addressing both the pandemic and climate change while setting out a more sustainable path moving forward.
Mhm. So, pandemic and climate change are two very different problems, specifically, and so, but really, you should be taking like a similar approach to both of them. Uh, I'm assuming sustainable means sustainable to the world, right? And there are many things that could really help with the current solution to the pandemic and the climate change. So tech and machines in general could help a lot with this. We're seeing a more shift into, for one, in terms of climate change, more renewable energy. Of course, we're not seeing them at scale yet because it's still difficult to scale, but we're seeing that it's becoming to the point where climate change might be like, so that that renewable energy will be possible within the next 30, 40 years. Um, And with the pandemic, you've got a lot of different things you can create to for this, not just on solving the current issue of the pandemic, but solving the issue where when it comes back. Because this is something that will come back eventually in the future if you don't solve it. The virus is not a one-shot thing. A virus and might come back in the next 50 years, or it might come back next year. A new virus might come here next year. We never really know. But the importance is that a lot of these problems are really born out of uh, a lot of these problems are really born out of people in governments and people in big companies and people in big organizations not being able to do the job correctly. But this is something that you can eventually understand, because if somebody else doesn't do the job correctly, that opens up the opportunity for somebody new to come in and do their job for them, right? And that's something that I think should be really people should start watching out for more. When is somebody doing their job incorrectly, and then what can you do to fix that? Because in the next, in our lifetimes, we're gonna see change coming at massive scale. We're gonna see a lot of things changing. We're gonna see a lot of things happening. We're gonna see a lot of opportunities rising up. So I think it's just my answer to that. Just take a more, just understand the world, understand exactly what's happening. Like I mentioned earlier, don't just try to make surface level solutions to things. Try to completely understand, okay, what are solutions? And if it's an obvious solution, why haven't they done this solution? Right? Like, why haven't people done solar energy for climate change, for renewable energy, or stuff like that? Understand why these solutions didn't work. And from there, once you talk to people, once you talk to scientists, once you talk to engineers, once you talk to these people who are on the cutting edge, you get to this place called the edge adjacent, where you can see this is the future. This is what's going to happen next. It's up to me to make this happen, right? And that's a more sustainable way of creating these solutions.
Another question raised by Vincent Salazar of UP Baguio. Tell us about your work in predicting the future as a CTO in MedHive.
Mhm. Uh, so I a lot of the a lot of that happens actually in the beginning, but it happens almost every day as well. Uh, because like I said, predicting the future is not just on exactly what will happen, but what kind of things will change, will fix it, what kind of solutions you might have, right? So we do this on a daily basis. We talk to our users. We talk to maybe like 10 doctors every week, or then we talk to a lot of them. We talk to mentors. We talk to a lot of people. Gain basically a gigantic view of uh, what is exactly the problem. Right. And it's only once you get this problem, they understand this problem fully and predict what kind of other problems this current problem will create, can you start making a sustainable solution to the current issue, right? So it's really on predicting the future in terms of what can I do so that what if this future keeps going on, if this future keeps happening, or if everything goes the way I see it in my head, the solution I will be bringing out will be providing tremendous value to the people who will be affected by it.
Okay, there's another question from Manalo from UP Diliman. The question is, in the event of creating a business addressing issues caused by the pandemic, how do you ensure its sustainability after the pandemic subsides?
Mhm. So obviously there are a lot of things that won't, like some solutions right now that won't keep going on until the pandemic subsides. Like for example, contact tracing. You only really contact tracing in times of viruses, in times of pandemics, right? Uh, but the biggest, like something like Grab Food and Food Panda is even before the pandemic, those problems were already really there actually. And same thing we can see we had with MedHive. These problems were already there even before the pandemic. These problems were affecting these hospitals, although it wasn't as obvious as it was today. They were already there, and once these people see that you know, like, oh crap, he's right. These problems were actually already there. These problems are now affecting me to an enormous degree. They'll start understanding and thinking that, hey, actually, maybe we should future proof it so that, for one, our initial problems with this will subside. But for two, if something like this happens again, it won't get any worse. And so, really, just talk to users and understand what their problems were even before or even after the pandemic. Because solutions are really only brought up by the problems you are solving. It's not the solution um, that becomes like useless. It's the problem you're solving that becomes useless. So you have to really tackle the right problems and ensure that the problem you're tackling doesn't still remains to be a problem after the pandemic subsides.
Another question by Eric Pablo from PSME RSU. What if our predicted future is wrong or not happened? What ideas can you share with us?
Yeah, of course, like every innovator's biggest fear is that the future he predicts is completely wrong. I think it was Bill Gates who said that, like in the 90s, that pieces would never go over like 5 megabytes, and obviously that was completely wrong, considering that now most people have a 1 terabyte or 500 gigabyte hard drive in their computers right now. And it's really there's really no avoiding being wrong sometimes. Uh, even the smartest people will predict things incorrectly, and it just happens. But the idea is that if you're really invested in that future, you have to just go out and create, right? You can't be wrong if you create that future. And really, it's something that innovators really double down on. If, for example, I predicted that the future will be filled with robots, then I can't be wrong if I'm the one who brings those robots into existence, right? One of the things I believe in fondly is that in the future we will have submarines which are as commercialized and commodified as like normal cars today. I completely believe in the future. Um, and I'm pretty sure that's inevitable. And that's something that I eventually want to help build in the future. But it's something that I know that will eventually happen. Um, but if it's wrong, then that's okay. I could be wrong. Maybe it's wrong, or maybe it's just not the right time. So yeah, a lot of predictions is just either about the right timing, and also ensuring that sometimes you will be wrong sometimes, but you have to move the universe in a way that you will have the most chance of being correct.
Okay, we have another question from Chris Gullibo from MHS. How do you think AI, Internet of Things, or 3D printing will help democratize technology and innovations in the Philippines?
Mhm. So I think thinking even further ahead of the future, there will probably be a future where we stop buying a lot of things, but instead start buying blueprints for them. That you then so blueprints, 3D models, or whatever that you insert into your 3D printing machine, and your machine will create it for you. I believe this will be also a big future, especially once we start doing space travel. But I digress. I think that really that AI, internet, and 3D printing are three completely different fields. But AI will definitely help make work a lot easier for people in the Philippines. Internet of Things will, I think, we're a bit too early to be an IoT country. Maybe in the next 50, 60 years, we can have more IoT um, enveloped into every day. But you know, these things like AI and 3D printing and Internet of Things really serve to make life easier in the Philippines. Um, not in just Philippines, in the world, actually. Democratizing technology, I think, is an interesting term, because I think it mostly affects the 3D printing side of those three industries. But I think all three of these will be able to eventually give a lot of power to the people, a lot of, a lot more room for doing many other things and being able to help save, like create a better world for everybody, in the entire world. So I think you're muted again.
Another question from Ryan Rabino from PIP Manila asks, as mechanical engineers of the future, what would be our major role in the creation of innovative business in a post-pandemic world?
So, uh, so I'm gonna say something that kind of makes me sad about the Philippines first, because in the Philippines, it's rare to find people that will invest in like things like hardware or real tech or something like that. If we were in America, if we were in Korea or anywhere else, I'd be more confident in saying that that mechanical engineers in the Philippines are the ones that will be able to create gadgets and technologies and um, the hardware and the things that will eventually run a lot of the world. We might see a more shift into more renewable energies, and we might see a shift of more things being less face to face. And with this requires a lot of new machines. With this requires a lot of new innovations in the gadget field to do. Um, I truly believe that a lot of things will be hardware in the future, but a lot of things will replace human involvement, and a lot of things will just be, automated for you. Like looking at something like Japan, actually, Japan's a really good example of this. They're filled with vending machines, filled with a lot of things automated. Ordering is automated. Everything's automated because for them, they've really wanted to create something like that from the beginning because they have a low amount of low skill work in Japan. But I think that is the future, especially post pandemic, because with less face to face, people have not noticed that with the pandemic, people have realized that face to face involvement isn't actually necessary all the time, and it has its flaws, a lot of flaws also. That's been put on the center stage for a lot of people. And now I believe mechanical engineers, computer engineers, and computer scientists will be the ones who will be shaping the future of like making things more automated and making things easier for people to not have to be there face, right? But I don't believe this will happen first in the Philippines, specifically because really the funding is bad here for hardware and we call it real tech, and it might be something that will happen in other countries, but I'm very skeptical of it happening in the Philippines.
Another question from Samir Amin from NCC. Tell us about your most significant failures as an engineer and how you resolved them and what you learned from them.
Mhm. So I think the jump from engineers extremely, like engineer to entrepreneur is extremely large, because a lot of things had to be pummeled into me to change exactly how I thought as an engineer and how I would think as an entrepreneur. Because once you grow up like as an engineer in UP or any college really, you are taught that failure is bad. You're that you always have to make the most perfect thing that solves 100% of the problem. But what you learn as an entrepreneur is sometimes the 100% solution is not the best solution. Sometimes you learn that like if a solution costs like 5 pesos, but it solves 80% of all the like the difficulties with this problem, or you have something that's 5 million pesos but solves 100% of all the difficulties with this problem. What do you think is better, right? It's actually the 5 peso one, because if you think about the cost to efficiency ratio, it's a lot cheaper to make the 5 peso one. It's a lot easier to, it solves 80% of the problems, right? And that's not something you're taught really as an engineer or as a student, you're taught to always give something that sells 100%. That's something I had to unlearn for a long time. That's something I had to keep rewiring in my head. There was this saying by Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, that if your first release of your product is something you're happy with or something you're confident about, then you've waited too long to release it. Because really, the best thing you could do when you're creating products, when you're creating innovative businesses, make the bare minimum first, the minimum viable product, we call it, that make the bare minimum that solves as much of the solution as possible and get it out there. And once you get it out there, then people can talk about it, people can help you make it better. But if you wait too long, you might spend too much money on it, too much time on it. And once you get it out there, you could realize that nobody really. And I failed a lot in the beginning because I was thinking like that. I was thinking that I had to make a perfect solution. And I had to wait. I had to keep waiting until I'm happy about it. That led to me, like, that led to me and MedHive really create. We worked on a product for 1 year, but realized that nobody really wanted to finish it. So that's something that I'm really still very visceral about, and something it's very visceral in my mind, that I can't. If I'm gonna fail, I want to fail fast. I want to keep failing quickly, so that I know exactly what needs to be changed. I can work something for a week, then see it, deploy it, see how it works out there. And then once I see that, if it fails, okay, I only spent 1 week. If it succeeds, then oh my god, I only spent 1 week, right? So once any of you become entrepreneurs, you have to remember that, yeah, you're gonna have to fail fast, but make sure you're failing forward. And something that's I really believe is one of my most significant failures as an engineer.
Another question by Nixon from BSU. Since we cannot know for sure what is going to be the aftermath of the pandemic business-wise, which department should an aspiring entrepreneur focus on to minimize the risk of losing money?
So I think I'm gonna just correct you, because I don't think that because a lot of us actually know what's gonna be in the aftermath of the pandemic. It's pretty obvious when you again look at, if you know the universe and look at all the positions of everything and all the force of everything that's driven the people there. We'll know that after the pandemic, there's probably gonna be a long recovery period because of the recession. That a lot of businesses will take a long time to. There will be a long period of creating new business, but we will also see that because of the death of many different industries and many different businesses, we're gonna see a large opportunity for making these industries and businesses better, right? You will see that a lot of things now are that a lot of luxuries we have before are gone. A lot of bars will close, a lot of restaurants will close, and that's something that really I think about now. It makes me sometimes cry at night. But it's something that I know that it will leave a chance for other entrepreneurs such as yourself to create new businesses, to create a new type of industry for this. And if you're gonna ask about which department should an aspiring entrepreneur focus on, there's a lot. There's not just one department that you can focus on. Of course, the most prominent one right now is health tech, and online payments, for example, things that are done online. Of course, it's extremely prominent. But really, if you look out there, you're gonna find problems in many different industries. There's not one department you can focus on. You're gonna see problems in so many different industries you can't even count. But if your question is focusing on minimize the risk of losing money, then do what I said earlier. Release something quickly, make something quickly, release it, and talk to people about it. That way, you'll spend only a little bit of money on it, and then you'll get it out there. You'll get feedback. You'll get this stuff immediately. You'll get answers immediately from people, and you'll know if you're actually solving a problem. So in the beginning, really, there's a lot of talking to people. There's a lot of failing. There's a lot of failing and failing. It's gonna keep happening, I assure you. But it's not something that you should be fearing. It's something that should tell you, okay, I don't know where I'm going right now, but because of each failure, it pushes me in a direction. It tells me, okay, I want to go here, I want to go here, I want to go there. You eventually like create this circle of failures around you that only drives you to push towards it one direction. And eventually, if you do that, then you're gonna minimize the risk of spending too much money on it.
We have another question from Eric from University of Rizal System. He asks, Given the status of our country, in your opinion, how long before we can catch up with the technological advances of other countries?
Hmm. So, I mean, of course, first question is, which country? But I think if you're talking about something like Singapore or America, even, or Hong Kong or Japan, of course, Philippines is going in a completely different direction, right? We won't exactly emulate what they have because they have like completely different uh, environments, right? They're not Philippines basically. But the first step really to actually uh, like to consuming or to becoming in technology advanced in the like front in the internet space, there's actually one industry that people see that jump starts the creation of many other industries, and that's the fintech industry, and more specifically the online payments industry. Basically, when Filipinos start using more PayMaya, GCash, uh, credit cards even, because we have a really low credit card usage. But once Filipinos start using that, we'll start to see that this will actually help the increase in innovation in many different industries. Because the easier it is to pay for things online, the easier it is for people who are making things online to make money. And uh, so, I'm happy to see that we're actually getting closer to that more online payments. I'm pretty sure maybe in like 5 years or so, we'll have a lot of online payments going on in the Philippines. But to reach somebody on the course of Singapore's level, it's not just a thing that entrepreneurs. It's not a thing that just entrepreneurs can like push us towards. Something that has to be a collective effort between the entrepreneurs and also the government, right? Um, like I heard that UP Techno Hub was supposed to be like a technological hub in the Philippines where people would fund different technologies and different innovations, right? But eventually became a commercial space because the government didn't fund it. If we had that, I'm pretty sure we'd be rushing towards the pace of other countries like Japan and Korea. But because we didn't do that, and we're gonna see a big stall in that, and until we do that, we're really not gonna be anywhere close to catching up to these countries because they're gonna keep running. They're gonna keep running at the current pace. We're walking at a slow pace. So we're never going to catch up to them if we keep walking at this pace. We have to push up our pace, and eventually, maybe hopefully in our lifetimes, we'll see that Philippines will be contending against many of these other countries.
Another question by Robert Gomikwa from Perpetual Calamba. Does staying in one company make your career stagnant? What advice can you share, especially for fresh graduates who are looking for jobs? What could be a good start?
Mhm. So, so short answer, yes. Because and that's because the career industry of what the world is now is different from what the industry of the boomers were. In the time of the boomers, you could work your entire life in one company, and then you'd rise up the career ladder, and you would be able to eventually become like a high-ranking officer, and then get paid a lot of money. That's not happening anymore because specifically because nowadays when companies want to get like a new president or a new executive, for example, what they do is they hire somebody from another company. They would look at other companies in their industry and be like, hey, okay, this guy has won in this company, so I'll bring him into my company. And that happens in pretty much every career now. So the corporate ladder is still there where you rise up your ranks, but it's not in one company anymore. What ends up happening now is you go to one company, rise up a bit there, go to another company, rise up a bit there, and then eventually you keep getting hired by many different companies. You're gonna be like swapped around, and then you're gonna keep racing up in the corporate ladder until eventually you get to a high ranking position. So yeah, you just nowadays we can't stay in one company anymore. But it's not necessarily a bad thing because by going to many of these different companies, you learn many different things really quickly, and that's something that new new executives and new leaders of the world have to do. They have to learn quickly. They have to learn from many different places.
Here we have another question from Patrick Jordan Ellsworth from PSME Technological Institute of the Philippines, Manila. The question is, what will you advise to students who have innovative ideas but are unable to voice it out or do not have the financial capacity to introduce it?
Mhm. So that's up regarding the problem I had also earlier with the funding of actual like tech in the film, which is really bad. Um, of course, the biggest issue with an innovative idea is really how do you get this innovative idea to people? How do you make people understand what your innovative idea is? Right. So what a lot of people do is they create these like minimum viable products or MVPs that are almost like the idea, but not but that's still very far from it. Right? They solve the problem, but they don't solve 100% of the problem. And sometimes this can be a prototype. Sometimes this can even be just a piece of paper. Sometimes you could draw a solution. You could then bring it to people and say, "Hey, do you think what I have solves your problem?" Or it could even be a PowerPoint, right? You can be like, "Hey, okay, you give a talk, and your two people in who are having a problem be like, "Hey, you think this will solve your problem?" If it does, and if it actually does, a lot of time you'll find that some people are already willing to help solve the problem, right? These people will put in some money. It might be a small amount of money, but it might be enough to get you somewhere. And then if you keep talking to more people, if you keep improving what your MVP is, you start seeing, okay, maybe more people are willing to give you money to help them solve this problem, right? With the MedHive, what we did, was what we presented uh, MedHive initially, and we talked to a lot of people, and we were already able to get some people who were like, okay, I really want this problem solved. I'm gonna give you some money to do. Not the good big amount of money, but it's something to start, right? That's something you might see. It's something you honestly have to do as an entrepreneur, because a lot of us, a lot of us won't have the money to fund their companies by ourselves. So you just have to get people to believe in your problem and believe in your vision. And from there, if you're really doing a good job at that, then money will, be there.
Another question raised by Kent from Central Mindanao University. Considering the current Philippine status quo, what is the heaviest limiting factor that deprives the engineers and scientists in our country to function effectively?
Uh, well, you know, there are many things here that's a problem. Of course, one could mention the gigantic brain drain of the country, because good people want to work with good people, right? But if the good people are so good at their leaving the country, then how do I work with good people? And that's really that's something that's like a really bad feedback loop with the like careers with engineers and everybody, right? Because if you're not working with good people, you're not improving yourself. And if you're good enough to leave the country, then you can't work with good people. So in a way, your career is kind of difficult. It's more difficult in the Philippines, and especially that in the Philippines, pay is a lot worse compared to other countries, and a lot of our conditions are pretty bad as well. Uh, it's really that, honestly. I think that's probably the heaviest factor, is that good people keep leaving. Uh, so eventually, hopefully, I don't know if it will be solved in our lifetimes, this issue with brain drain. But eventually, I hope it would be, because I really wish that Philippines would become this like like mecca of like a haven for technological innovation, because we do have a lot of natural resources here to make hardware. We have one of the biggest cobalt mines in the entire world, and that's using a lot of microchips and microtransistors, and it's something that's, I think, if we just kept the engineers here, we could really create a very inclusive country that has so many different people from so many different places, like a cultural melting pot. And I think we have the chance to be something like Singapore, but it's just something that has to be worked on by you know everybody, including the government and also the companies hiring people.
Okay, there's another question from Noel Corteza from University of the Philippines, Diliman. He asks, how important is the role of the government in bringing business ideas into reality, particularly in terms of financial support, intellectual property policies, and etc.?
So the short answer vary. And that's because a lot of these countries that have been jump started and created a gigantic uh, foothold in the tech industry. These are countries that have been supported by their governments. Singapore, for example, gives you tax breaks if you're an innovative startup or a business. And even going so far as giving you funding. The government actually regularly goes to innovative events and gives some companies funding. Even small things like this could really create a gigantic industry already. But also, of course, a lot of other things as well, such as supporting incubators and accelerators that help develop these innovative ideas and businesses. Uh, and of course, making things like, I think something that's very easy to do, but I don't know why they're not doing, is making things like business registration so much easier. Uh, like for us, business registration took 8 months. It took 8 months from submitting the papers to getting our actual permit. If you go to Singapore, you can literally register your business on your phone, and it's done in a day. So compare 1 day to 8 months. That's a lot of time, and that's honestly probably one of the biggest things that are really preventing innovative businesses from just sprouting up. Because if you can't put a business up, you can't make money, and you can't really charge your service. If it takes 8 months to do so, then it's hard. So yeah, there's a very big role of the government in helping businesses thrive and businesses grow out and increase incredibly fast.
Another question from Jean De Gia from TIP Manila. What business ventures are relevant in a post-pandemic or new normal world? And how can we mechanical engineers venture into these businesses?
Mhm. So I think I mentioned earlier, but I think we're gonna see a lot of automation in the future. A lot of machines will be automated, will be less face to face. So I do believe that some like in the creation of these machines, then you will put a really big emphasis on that as well as the improvement of many different public transportation vehicles. So I'm guessing the pandemic, even post pandemic, will affect the way we use public transportation, right? It might be minor changes, but I'm guessing that these jeeps, these trains, these everything will have changes to them to make it a bit more future proof towards any future pandemics. Uh, but really, a lot of things will change. Honestly, a lot of things I don't have a lot of vision on. Like the mechanical engineering field is not something I'm super knowledgeable about. So what kind of machines will be needed in the future with actions, and that I think you and you people understand better. But like I said earlier, if you really want to do this, I just have to understand really like the people and the forces that are driving the positions of all these people in the universe. Understand exactly what their problems are, understand what created these problems, and understand how it can affect the future. And from there, you can see what kind of things can I move on into as a mechanical engineer, and what kind of things can I change in this world.
Okay, we have another question from John Ante from Bat State U. Automation is a viable future for our country given this pandemic, but given there is still a significant number of citizens having problems using these modern technologies, specifically on medtech, how can engineers make these innovations friendly to these individuals?
Mm. So friendly is really about just talking to people about it. You have to be able to talk to people while you're creating whatever you're creating. Because if you miss out that part, you're gonna be surprised when people say, "Oh, I don't understand this," and guess what? It's because you didn't talk to anybody. Because even before you created the machine, you probably didn't ask the layman, the people who will be using it, if they can understand what it does immediately. Um, and it's really something that should be really taught more, I think, in school, that you should be spending a lot of time talking to people. In companies we have this thing called user hours, and that's the amount of hours that everybody in the company spends talking to users every week. And that's something that's very important when you're building an innovative product, because you're gonna be, uh, even if you have the most sophisticated and most amazing piece of technology in the world, if nobody understands it, you're gonna be thinking to yourself, "Oh, I made something that's too early. I made something that's was too early for its time." I don't believe that anything is too early for its time. I just believe that something is just badly marketed, right? It's something that somebody didn't talk to people about to exactly understand what they wanted. Um, and with that, there's definitely gonna be an education process for every new innovation, but it's gonna be a lot easier if you talk to people about it so that they understand it intuitively. And so, yeah, just if you're an engineer, talk to people, talk to people, talk to people. I cannot stress it enough. There's one thing you should take away from my talk and my questions I've answered is that whenever you're creating something innovative, talk to somebody and ask them how they think about it. Get feedback.
Another question from Junior from TUP Taguig. In your perspective as a tech engineer, an innovator, an entrepreneur, and a Filipino, what might be a possible major problem that will be encountered by the young generation in the future?
Mhm. So something like data and data privacy is gonna be something that's gonna be affecting our generation, also the next generation for a really long time. And we have the younger generation who's pretty much grown up already with cell phones to smartphones, right? The iPhone was created, I think, 2009. So even if you're born in 2009, you're already 11 years old and you've already been born after the smartphone was created, right? Um, and so uh, these people have spent their entire lives online on their phones and on their gadgets. Not bad, but it's bad because their data and everything, their entire lives are also on. And that's something that the younger generation is going to be facing even a harder time on, because we're seeing that a lot of this data could be used against us, right? A lot of, like, if you watch things like The Great Hack, or I think there's a new one, I forgot the name of it, Netflix, where it was basically detailing the use of the the dangerous use of data. These things can be really used against us pretty easily. These online identities that we build, these digital footprints that we're building, is something that can be used against us, and especially for the generation that grew up with their entire lives on that platform, right? um, and that's something that's going to be the younger generation is going to be facing, as well as issues with AI being racially biased. The many biases that AI has that will have to be fixed in the future. Something that I really believe that will be a gigantic problem in the future. And actually, already now, it's already becoming a gigantic problem now, and we'll see more of it in the future.
Another question from Jesper Kapul from Central Mindanao University asks, how does having diverse people with diverse ideas play into organizational success?
Mhm. So yeah, definitely important to have a lot of diverse ideas. Something else we also had to learn in MedHev pretty early on. Because if you keep talking to the same people with the same backgrounds in the same industries, you'll quickly learn that they have the same thoughts as you do. So you might as well be talking to yourself at that point. You might as well just be like looking at the mirror and having a conversation with yourself and saying, how does this idea play out? It doesn't really make any difference, right? Uh, so definitely having diverse people with extremely diverse ideas helps create more innovative business, because you get more answers from people, and many different ideas playing into your organization. You might get more diverse solutions to incredibly hard problems, and you don't know which one of the solutions will actually completely solve your problem. But if you didn't have that diverse person in there, you didn't have that person who you knew this very specific set of information in there, then you would never have thought of that problem in the future. And I think we'll start seeing more of that in the future, where more companies will really start, especially innovative companies, will really start to bring in more diverse staff and yeah, like diverse ideas into the industries, and something that's already actually being done in places like Silicon Valley and Singapore.
Another question by Siren Matthew Rubio from Batangas State University. Do you think that internet connectivity issues in our country affects our innovation?
Yeah, definitely. Um, so there was a study about I don't remember the exact numbers, but basically the idea was that every Mbps of internet added changes the product, like makes people more productive, right? Makes people much more productive. And you can see like if this makes sense because if you're able to do things faster, then you could look up information faster. You could type things down faster. You could get many different ideas and everything faster. Um, and it's something that really I think really hinders our current country right now. But not just not just the speed of internet, but also uh how people have access to internet right now, right? So right now we're at a weird state because around 70% of people now I think have smartphones, and a lot of that is being used to browse Facebook. Uh, Weirdly enough, right? So I'm 70% of people in the Philippines, by the way, and like a lot of them are browsing Facebook completely because of the free data thing that Globe has, and it's helping ideas get around much faster. But it's also becoming this thing that's spreading a lot of bad propaganda towards uneducated people, and it's something that's kind of linked to even the rise of people like our president and people like something like that. uh so definitely the connectivity of internet and also of the education of people plays a big role into the success of our country and also in our innovation. But also another one is that with faster internet, we can start seeing that it's easier for people to learn things, easier for people to be knowledgeable in certain situations because they can learn research things much faster. And that's something that plays a gigantic role in the innovation of a country.
Another question from Bill from UP Diliman. What other innovations do present businesses or to new ones do you think our country needs?
Mhm. So I'm not going to name specific ones, but I'm going to name a specific type of change that I want to see more. Uh, Basically, I don't want to see really over-engineered things like high-tech solutions in the Philippines because a lot of our problems that we have in the Philippines can be solved by simple solutions. Um, and you'll see this more if you look at many different industries. A lot of them have simple problems. If you go to some place like America or like Singapore, the problems solving there are extremely high tech, but they're solving very niche problems. Like I remember there's just one pitch that I heard that there was this guy who made this app that makes online ordering for stuff like Starbucks much easier, so you can save 30 seconds every time you go to a Starbucks. So like to us 30 seconds really what the heck, why would you care about those 30 seconds of waiting at Starbucks line? But it's something that a country that's already super technologically advanced faces because they've already solved a lot of the easy problems. So in the Philippines you haven't solved a lot of these problems. A lot of the problems are extremely easy and will be solved by easy solutions. You don't need drones most likely, you don't need high-tech AI blockchains or anything solutions yet for some of these solutions, but we will start seeing that these simple solutions will be prevalent. E-commerce marketplaces are becoming prevalent for now. For example, um, many different industries, many different simple industries are catching up. Online payments, online everything, digitalization of workflows, and so on. And we're seeing that. I believe that's really the simple solutions that matter more than super high tech billion-dollar solutions, for example, right now.
We have another question from Alfredo Ramos from Mapua University. Does the integration of assistance within the work environment in the form of AI based tech have a higher risk for lesser quality outputs from future workers who might be more aligned on machine learning rather than their specialized learning in their own program?
Mm. So I think what you're trying to say that is eventually machine learning will cause people to or like AI will basically cause people to work less on their own specialized programs. And honestly, I think that's good. Uh, there's nothing wrong with being over reliant on machines, right? People always say like, "Oh my God, humanity is getting dumber. Humanity is getting dumber," and you're being super over reliant on smartphones or whatever. But in reality, smartphone has made it so easy to access information that I don't need to remember anything, right? I don't need to remember the dumb stuff. I don't really need to remember the things that don't really matter to me. Now I get notifications whenever I have like a meeting. I don't have to remember it on my planner. I don't have to like write it down. I don't have to remember in my head what it's gonna be. These are things that humans aren't really needed in. And if it's something that a machine can do, something that AI can do, better than us, more importantly, they can probably do it better than us, then there's no reason for us to learn it. But there is so much more that AI cannot do. There's so many things that only humans can do. And those are the things we should be focusing on, right? Those are the things that humanity should be doing. Maybe the future is we only go to college for 1 year. And then we spend our entire careers working with an AI algorithm or AI machine that tells us basically the very specialized and concise stuff that we do not really need to know. Especially in medical, for example. I don't I'm even doctors right now don't even remember, like there are a lot of very specific diseases that don't normally come up every day that they'll forget about. Specifically because it doesn't come up every day. But the machine won't forget that stuff. Machine remembers all the diseases, right? And then they can see from symptoms and see that okay, it's most likely this disease. If you can cut the time that a doctor has to spend in medical school because you can cut the time that they actually need to learn these diseases and these symptoms to only maybe specific diseases and symptoms, right? And that's better. It's better for humanity as a whole because we can get right to doing what's important to us and what we can do.
Another question from Angel Parawan from JPSME-PUP-AC. If the government plays a vital role in the business industry, how can we mechanical engineers or engineers in general help to assure that the government will do its job well and correctly?
Hmm. So, uh, hmm, not quite sure on what exactly mechanical engineers can do, but I can say more what people can do. Uh, because of course, everybody here has to vote for the next president, and of course, everybody plays a role in who the next leaders of our country will be. So definitely, it's important that everybody ensures that we are led by the right people. But I don't know how exactly a mechanical engineer could help the government, uh, like be better because engineers in general aren't supposed to do that. And that's the job for political scientists and so on, right? People in politics to help and also for us to vote on the right people. Of course, we can make mechanics can make life for everybody in the Philippines better, but I'm not sure exactly how we can make it happen for the government.
Another question from Demi Alawi from Batangas State University asks, what is the biggest risk in doing business during the ongoing pandemic? Moreover, how can we prevent it?
So actually, the biggest risk was not it's not at this point anymore. It was at the point 6 months ago when the pandemic was still unpredictable. We've come to a point now where the pandemic is predictable. We have an idea of when the vaccines will be created, which is around hopefully Q4 or Q1 next year. We have an idea of how long it might take to be distributed, which I'm guessing is a long time as well because Philippines, right? A lot of these things are kind of predictable now, considering previous track record and considering what's been going on so far. And so a lot of the risk is really gone because you know what's already happening. You've already gotten used to it. You won't be starting a new restaurant right now, of course, because you know that nobody's gonna buy. So risk is really built on unpredictability, and because now it's kind of predictable. There's not much. Well, there is still some, but it's not as much as when it was 6 months ago, where everything was unpredictable. So if you want to prevent risk, just understand like everything about like the business you're building. understand what problems you're solving. And then if your problem is still a problem after the pandemic, if your problem is still a problem without COVID, then there's really little risk to it because you're actually solving an actual problem. And make sure you talk to people and ensure that you're solving that problem for them.
Another question from Kurt Antipuesto from Xavier University. In taking action to this pandemic, many mechanical engineers are working from miles away. How would they innovate designs given the distance? As an aspiring mechanical engineer, how will I make an impact?
Mhm. So remote work is something that's been thrown around a lot. But I think the biggest issue is that remote work isn't possible for every industry, right? You still have factory workers, you still have people who have to do things by hand. And probably in the soon future, we'll start seeing that a lot of these things will be made more remote. Like there might be machines which can be used to emulate human movement, emulate the interaction of humans with a real place. And I think really making work remote like that in an aspect where I can do my work that used to require me to be there by hand is something that's extremely valuable. Because not only can it work in a pandemic environment, but it also means that I can hire people from different countries, from different places, from different locations to work on things that used to require people to be there by hand. And I think that's this field will be something that's really important to mechanical engineers in the future. That remote work is really gonna be something that's gonna stay, and it's gonna be something that can provide value even after the pandemic.
A question from Hans Suarez from MSEUF asks, given the advancements in electricity generation, most notably in the alternative energy field, what do you think will be the future of power generation in the Philippines?
Mhm. So there are three that I see. One, of course, the most obvious one is probably solar power, because we do have a really hot country, and our sun, this like we're in a very tropical country where sun's rays are very powerful here. So I think advances like Elon Musk's solar powers, a solar roof like Solar City, where houses have solar powered roofs that are almost indistinguishable from normal house roofs, right? Will become very big in countries like the Philippines. But of course, we also have a lot of natural water, natural movement of water in the country. So because we're an archipelago, if we are able to bank more on water power generation, hydroelectric generation, then that's something that will be very useful in the future. Um, and same with also with natural gas power generation. We also have a lot of that. We have a lot of volcanoes. We have a lot of natural gas. But I think the things that will really have to be solved is efficiency, because it takes a lot of solar panels to get to uh, anywhere close to what coal and fuel and gasoline can generate. It takes a lot because these things are not efficient enough. That's the main reason why climate change is not taken. I'm sorry, climate change things that will help generate power alternatively has not taken off because these are not efficient enough. Hydroelectric power is not efficient enough. Um, Natural gas might be, but it's hard to implement, and solar power is still not efficient enough. You still have to make a lot of solar panels across a large area to do something. And that's something I'm pretty sure MechEng will be solving in the future, where you have to make more efficient solar panels. So that a tiny solar panel can generate more, like even double the energy that it used to in a smaller space. Once we can keep advancing in that direction, there will come a point where it's just dumb to not use solar panels or solar power, right? There will be a point where gas is going to be more expensive to create and to mine and to pump out of the ground, or like oil. It's going to be harder to get than solar power. And at that point, once you're at that point where solar panels are much more efficient, then you'll start seeing a very natural shift into making the countries in the world more solar powered.
John from UP Diliman. What drove you to start up your company? What challenges did you face, and what is your message to students your age who aspire to create a business?
Okay. So, honestly, I've been wanting to do startup for a very long time already. It's and after watching things like Social Network and Silicon Valley, like these things really made me want to create something innovative in the future. And it's I hope something that I can help. I hope this feeling something I could impart to the viewers of this talk, that you can really make a lot of difference as an innovative company, with a startup. Because as a child, I always wanted to be like an inventor of new things, a guy who made new things. And I'm pretty sure it's something that's shared within a lot of different engineers in many different fields, right? And we'll start seeing, actually, we probably already see now that a startup and a business is one of the best ways to do so. It's one of the best ways to make a change and get it out there, right? Previously we thought it would be academia or science, but really, as a business seems to be the leading way in doing these things, even more than the academia, even more than just straight science. And really, I faced a lot of problems as a student trying to create my own business. When we made MedHive, I was like 17 when we started it, and it went about as smoothly as you'd expect a 17-year-old kid in making a business. It went pretty horribly. We made a lot of mistakes. We made a lot of things, and we had to learn a lot from what happened, right? Um, but all these failures really helped me grow as a person and understand exactly what it takes to be a businessman. I've experienced extreme lows, cold sweats, like nights where you're sweating, even though your aircon's completely on. You can't sleep. You can't. Sometimes you gotta get a lot of anxiety attacks, and you get a lot of these many different issues, and that's something you have to learn to manage when you're creating a business. It's difficult. It's difficult. It's not meant to be easy, especially if you don't know anything about it, right? But I think my best advice for other students as well is just to don't be afraid of failure. Too many of us are just completely afraid of failure. Too many of us are just so worried that if you fail, that's it, that's the end. It's not true. It's Once you fail, it's just the beginning. Once you fail, you can make things better. You can learn. You can make things better. You can do things better. And from there, that's where real innovation starts, by consecutive failure.
Okay, final question. Arius from UP Diliman. How did you manage your time given that you're still a student and that you're a businessman?
Uh, short answer is you really can't. Um, because in the beginning you dictate your own schedule. In the beginning, you can say, okay, I'm gonna work in this hour. I'm gonna work in this hour. But as your company gets more traction, as it gets more, customers, users, whatever, you'll start to notice that it's not you who dictates your schedule anymore. It's your customers who dictate your schedule. When it comes to that point where customers dictate your schedule, you you cannot balance everything anymore. You can't balance being a student anymore, because you might be going to class and then be getting a call, like while you're in class. You might be trying to work on your homework, and you're gonna be called because it's an emergency that needs to be solved right away. And that's just a reality that you need to understand, that as an entrepreneur, there really is no downtime. There really is no schedule, especially once you have customers that are already dictating.
And thank you for those very insightful questions. That's it for the talk and the question and answer. It's interesting how many avenues and opportunities we can take in building businesses beyond the pandemic. I'm sure our audience have learned many things from this. Again, let's thank Gabriel Lopez for the talk.
Thank you.
For the awarding, Okay, for the awarding certificates, may we call on Mr. Ram Piamonte, the NMESC 2020 co-head.
Okay, I'll be completely honest. I did not think we'd reach 9:30, but all right. So I'm gonna go read out the certificate right here. So this certificate of appreciation is awarded to Gabriel Lopez for his talk on creating innovative business in a post-pandemic world during the National Mechanical Engineering Students Convergence 2020. Gear Up, restarting innovation with mechanical engineering to drive a resilient and renewed nation on September 21, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Piamionte. And that's a wrap for day one of the National Mechanical Engineering Students Convergence 2020. We hope you enjoyed and learned a lot from our most esteemed speakers. Stay around for day two or drop by in the coming days for more talk. We'll also be announcing the winners of the raffle at the beginning of every show, so don't miss out.
Before you leave, we'll be flashing the details for the evaluation form for the raffle and certificates. I am Jamie Papa.
And I am Saivil Yasis. Thank you, good night, and see you again tomorrow.